Welcome back. If creativity is important, both in your career and in your life, then you'd probably like to know how you might want to improve it. First, before you start, you might want to use a simple tool to help you understand your own creativity, which considers your ability to deal with abstract, complex, and paradoxical ideas, to connect ideas together, and to change your perspective, your curiosity, your boldness, and your persistence. Let's start by talking about different ways to enhance your creativity. And then we will discuss personal creativity barriers. Removing creativity barriers can be equally important in enhancing personal creativity. I'm sure you'll recall that when you were in kindergarten, all they did was encourage you to try new things and be more creative. However, you probably also noticed that ever since you left kindergarten, people have been unintentionally stifling your creativity by telling you what you cannot do and what you're bad at and why things you've created are no good. In kindergarten, if you produce this drawing, you'll be told how wonderful it was. But if you produced it now, you'd be told that it was not representative, not accurate, and that it did not create a mental image. By the way, I still find this drawing as powerful as the day my daughter gave it to me when she was in kindergarten. There are several creativity enhancing techniques, and we're going to talk about 5 of the most popular ones. Changing your perspective, divergent thinking, lateral thinking, assumption busting, and creative thinking processes. We'll explain how to use each in a subsequent lesson. My colleague Shlomo Matai from Technion is an expert in creativity, and his book and in his Coursera course, Cracking the Creativity Code, he talks about changing perspectives using the zoom in, zoom out, zoom in method, or ZiZo.
There's a paradox about creativity. Creativity thrives in open, free, unconstrained environments. At the same time, you need to have some structure on your approach to coming up with ideas, because just brainstorming and scribbling down things or posting it on the wall, that doesn't work. We know brainstorming is not an effective way of coming up with ideas. So how can you put some structure on creativity without killing it? And in our book, we suggest a way of doing that. And it's really simple. First step, we call it zoom in. Really understand the problem, every single detail, with a microscope or a magnifying glass. Step 2, when you really understand the problem, and by the way, you're sure that there is a problem, because sometimes we're solving problems that aren't really existing, you zoom out with a telescope and you scour the world for ideas, solutions, technologies, things that might be relevant for solution. Then you zoom in again, collect all the things that you discovered in your shopping bag, bring it back home, spill it on the floor, and start to go through it and apply what you learned to solving the problem. And you may have to do that process several times. Zoom in, zoom out, zoom in. What we discovered is there are quite a few methods, structured methods for creativity. The 7-step method of Osborne, convergent and divergent thinking, and they're all pretty much the same. They all involve detailed analysis of the problem, converging on it, and then a zoom out to discover all kinds of solutions, divergence, and alternating between those two. Very often, innovation involves what I call X plus Y. You take Y, your problem, and you zoom out and you find something that's totally unrelated, X, and you find a way to create enormous value by combining X plus Y. So my favorite story in this is about the children's emergency room in a British hospital. And sometimes they had to transfer young children to the emergency room and from the emergency room. And if this involves hooking up a lot of expensive equipment or unhooking the equipment, It has to be done really fast, and sometimes seconds are crucial in this. And the question they asked was, how can we do this faster and better? That was a zoom-in problem. We're not doing this fast enough to help our children. And then the zoom-out question was, who does this kind of thing really well that we can learn from? And they found the answer in a very unusual place, Formula One racing. So they went to a Formula One racing team and they observed how the team fills the car with gasoline and changes 4 tires. My students tell me that the world record is 2.5 seconds. The average is somewhere around 7 or 8 seconds. But that's a very short time to take 4 tires off, put 4 tires on, fill the car with gas, take the gas out, and off the car goes. So they observed this, they watched the team work, and they saw that everybody in the team had a function, had a task. There was a defined program to be done. Everybody knew their job. They practiced and did this really quickly. And that method was transferred to the intensive care room with productive result. Zoom out means you don't learn anything from your own industry going to other intensive care rooms. You only learn from things that are a bit farther away. And that's where you really reap the good ideas and then harvest them, bring them back, and apply them.
As you can see by zooming out, you can learn things about your solution, whether it's a product or service, by taking a look from a different viewpoint. When you change your perspective, you begin to see things you did not see previously. Another classic approach to creativity is divergent thinking, with the most popular technique being brainstorming, which was popularized by Alex Osborne in 1953 based on his book, Applied Imagination. Brainstorming is now the basis of many other approaches to creative problem solving. Essentially, brainstorming is a group creativity technique where a number of people attempt to solve a problem by listing ideas without censoring them before sharing them, and then hearing them without criticizing once they've been shared. Once ideas are recorded, the group can use a variety of different techniques to group similar ideas together, to improve on each other's ideas, and then to select the most promising ideas to move forward with. Another technique is lateral thinking. It's a term that was developed by Edward de Bono in 1967 to solve problems through an indirect and creative approach using reasoning that is not immediately obvious and involving ideas that might not be obtained by using a traditional step logic approach.
There are 6 eggs in the basket. 6 people take one of the eggs. How can it be that one egg is left in the basket? Now, if I asked you this question, what would your answer be? Maybe you decide to take the most obvious approach and say, it's impossible. 6 people take 6 eggs, the basket's obviously empty. This is vertical thinking. Or maybe you come up with something like, the last person waits for the egg to hatch and grow into a chicken and lay an egg, and so there's an egg left in the basket. This is the horizontal pattern of thinking. One idea uses the obvious logic. The other idea is technically possible but incredibly improbable. Both of these do make sense, and that's why I'm not saying they are wrong, but instead of thinking horizontally or vertically, why not think laterally? A solution that is logical and also easy to execute. So how about this for an answer? The 5 men each pick up an egg, and the last man picks up the basket with the egg inside it.
My favorite example of lateral thinking, which is one that Dr. Bono once shared with me in a class at London Business School, is around the shortage of trained taxi drivers in London. De Bono suggested that there should be 2 types of black cabs in London. One where drivers knew their way around town, and a discounted one indicated with maybe a question mark on the top of the taxi, where the cab driver had to rely on the passenger's knowledge of way to go. This allowed people that were learning to be taxi drivers to earn money while they were still learning. Of course, now Google and Waze make this insight less useful. Another of De Bono's lateral thinking techniques is known as 6 thinking hats, where you consider a specific problem from 6 different perspectives. For example, the managing perspective, or the blue hat, where you identify what's the problem. The information perspective, or the white hat, where you try and identify what information is available to make a decision. The emotional perspective, or the red hat, what do you feel about the problem? The discernment perspective, or the black hat, what's the logical and the conservative approach? And the optimistic perspective, using the yellow hat, what are the upsides or the benefits? Finally, the creativity perspective, or the green hat, what are the possibilities?